she back from Florida? This meeting is being, oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Is she back from, where'd she go? Where did you say she went, Anita?
Well, wasn't she going to Florida?
Was it Florida? I remember they were going somewhere, but
she's back.
She's
Yeah,
back?
but she's
Okay.
back from Florida because she was there on Sunday. So
Okay.
I don't know. I forget what she said was going on today. I don't know. Something was.
I think she's got something going on at the church where she was working and where she is now working. Still, like in a different capacity.
Oh,
Something going on Thursday.
Thursday night Crossways at Grace.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
He's in
Yeah.
your Bible study.
Okay, so I think she won't be able to make Thursdays for that reason or Tuesdays because of choir practice right now. So we'll record these on Thursdays and hopefully she can come on Saturday. Can everybody come this Saturday by any chance? If we meet in person? Now the options are either 9 to 11, or if anybody wants to go to E72, we could do it like 12 to 1:30.
Yeah, well, the 1:30 would be good.
We might have to cut it just a little shorter than 1:30 because I know the C.S. Lewis thing starts at that time in that room. So would that work? 12 to 1:30?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, I'm not sure about the E72, what time that gets over. I know it starts at 10. Is it usually over? You've gone on it, Beth, right? Is it over by noon or?
It's usually.
It's well, it has, yeah, it's usually, I don't know. I don't pay attention to the time when we finish, so I'm not quite sure.
How do you determine when it's done? Like, do you just say you're going to go to so many houses or?
Yeah, we've just gone to so many houses in the neighborhood and you look at the time and it's like, oh, okay, it's getting, but I think since Pastor's doing the C.S. Lewis, he'll finish by, to get back to the church. Oh no, that's before noon. So I don't know. I'm so tired. I'm not thinking straight.
Yeah, well,
I went, like, we got together and then we went out and then we got back together and had like a wrap-up session.
Okay.
For that one. So I don't know if he's still doing it like that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, the last ones I went on is but it wasn't, Pastor's never been on the one. I've gone out 3 times and we've just kind of started at a place in the neighborhood, walked the neighborhood, and then came back to our cars and was like, okay.
Okay.
I'll see you at church. Yeah.
So it's feasible that you could finish up in time to be back at 12, you think, or?
I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Okay.
yes, anybody, if I don't know.
Oh, if you're not going to do it, well, then we could do, I don't know, we could do 11 to 1.
Okay.
If that works. Does that work for you, Anita?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, let's plan on that, and I'll let Teresa and Mary know too. Hopefully they can do it. Yeah, be good to get together in person again. Because if you were going to do it, Beth, I was thinking about doing it, but I don't know how I'll feel anyway on Saturday, so I better not commit to that. Okay, well, let's see. I can't tell if we're recording. I think we're recording.
There's a recording.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it says paused or stop recording, so I'll just let that go. I'm not gonna know where to find the recording after it's over, but I'll deal with that later. Where does it go? Does it go to the cloud? I don't know.
Well, that's okay. I was in Ephesians Bible study before I was trying to get.
I was there.
I can't. I mean, my thing. You sent us the link, for anyway.
I know.
And then I looked on the top and it said two recipients. I said, no, that's not it.
Like that can't be it. I'm glad you found your way here. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's how technically inclined I am. I'm not.
Hi, Teresa.
Hey
Get
there,
get the grandkids fed.
got them fed and their dad just picked them up and I said,
Oh, okay.
good.
Okay, good.
Oh.
All right, good. Well, we got everybody that except Mary, and we're recording. Just so you know, Teresa, we're recording this one, so Mary can watch it later. And you haven't missed anything yet. We've just been sort of chit and chatting about Saturday. Would you be available Saturday to meet at church from 11 to 1?
This Saturday?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yay. Okay, good, good. Okay. 11 to 1. That'll be good. All right. So today we didn't really finish the whole module on experiencing grief. So I wanted to pick up on, I think it's in our manuals, I think we're on like page 282, with the third phase that they call rebuilding.
Sorry. Rebuilding. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
What page?
I think it's 282 in
282,
the
yeah.
manual.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay, so the third phase, rebuilding, begins at different times for different people and for different losses. For some, it might start months after the loss. For others, it may take longer to begin this phase. Even at this point in grief, people will continue to experience waves of loneliness, sadness, anger, and other difficult feelings, so they'll still benefit from your care and support. Part of rebuilding involves deepening existing relationships or starting new ones to fill the void left by the loss, which can be challenging for many people. Your care will take all these needs into account. Number one, they have continue your caregiving. First, you'll continue to visit your care receiver and provide emotional support during the rebuilding phase. Over time, your visits may involve less in-depth discussion, but your care receiver will still need and appreciate your care. Second one, encourage new and renewed social relationships. You encourage your care receiver to gradually expand his or her social circle, taking small, gradual steps as he or she is ready. The amount of encouragement you need to provide will vary from person to person. Someone who's shy may need more help than someone who's more extroverted. You might talk with your care receiver about ways to renew old friendships or form new ones. You might ask about your care receiver's hobbies or interests and discuss ways to use them to connect with other people. Focus on the process of exploring possibilities with your care receiver, encouraging him or her to follow through while always allowing your care receiver to move at his or her own pace. And continue to pay attention to feelings. Throughout the rebuilding phase, keep paying attention to your care receiver's feelings and encouraging him or her to express those feelings. From time to time, you may want to ask questions, such as those listed in Focus Note 17. Something like, we're coming up on the anniversary of when Chris died. How are you feeling about that? Or, we haven't talked about Chris for a while. Tell me how you're feeling. You can see from those questions that as a caregiver, you're called to do something many people avoid, mentioning the lost loved one by name. Focus Note 18 shows how that caring act was significant to one care receiver. And I'll read that one. After my son Matthew died, most people avoided mentioning his name, thinking it might make me sad, but my Stephen minister would ask me about Matthew regularly, and every time I was glad for the chance to talk about him. I would sometimes shed some tears while doing so, but that was important to me because it helped me feel connected to Matthew. And I can attest to this too, that my care receiver right now is going through grief, and she just kind of like brightens up whenever I do mention his name. And I ask her questions about him using his name. And so it's like, I think it's kind of a validation to them that, they haven't been forgotten. The people are still interested in knowing about them, and it's okay for them to have memories and relive those memories. So throughout the grief journey, don't be afraid to say the loved one's name. You may be the only person the grieving person has to talk openly without treasured memories or about treasured memories and deep emotions. Okay, let's see. this point, there's a lot of skill exercises that we're not really going to do in this one. We may or may not try some of these on Saturday, but tonight I wanted to go ahead and move on to the next module, which is caring for those with depression. It's the Stephen minister's role. Okay. Anybody have anything they wanted to say first about the rest of the depression or the rest of the grieving module? Or any thoughts from your readings? No? Okay. Okay, so yeah, for this module, which is what, 13, I think, right?
Right?
Yeah, 13. Okay. So anyone might experience some level of depression at one time or another, and some of us probably have encountered it ourselves. Depression can be a painful, frustrating, and exhausting experience, affecting a person's outlook, sharpness of mind, and overall functioning. Those who are depressed may wish they could just will themselves back to normal, only to face the reality that it's not quite that simple. Anybody experienced that before? I have.
Yeah.
So in the pre-class reading, you read that a major challenge for someone experiencing depression is the ongoing cycle of negativity that can leave a person feeling trapped and defeated. Often people aren't able to see a way out of their situation, or they may see what needs to be done, but struggle to take the necessary steps to help themselves. In the Bible, the prophet Elijah faced a frightening and painful experience, resulting in his feeling very depressed. While living faithfully for God, he met strong opposition, including from Queen Jezebel, who threatened to have him killed. Desperate and feeling alone, Elijah ran. Could somebody read the verse about Elijah that's at the top of the outline? I'm not sure what page that's on, maybe 2. Does anybody see it? I have it.
I don't see it.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
read it.
Oh, you found it? Okay.
Where is it?
What page is
Isn't
on?
it page 297?
297?
290.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Beth.
Okay. I mean, this may not be it, but I'll go here.
I'll stop you if it's not the right one.
Okay. But he himself wilderness came and sat down under a solitary broom tree. He asked that he might die. It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my ancestors.
Yeah, thank you.
1 Kings 19:4.
That was the right one. So Elijah lay down and fell asleep until he felt a hand on him. The hand belonged to an angel sent by God to strengthen and refresh him for a journey to Mount Horeb. Once he arrived on the mountain, he rested in God for 40 days and nights, and there he learned to hear God's voice as a silent whisper. Those who are depressed may not vocalize their fear and pain in the same way as Elijah, but they certainly are crying out for help, just as God's angel met Elijah in his depression and helped him find his way to hearing the voice of God. So God works through Stephen ministers to bring strength and hope to care receivers struggling with depression. Your presence can refresh a care receiver, helping him or her find the hope and healing that he or she so desperately needs. And we have opening. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, excuse me, Renee. What'd you say? 40 days and 40 nights?
That's what it says. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know it was that long.
I didn't know that either.
No.
Yeah, until I read that. The only time I'd ever
Wow.
heard the 40 days and nights was when Jesus was in the wilderness. Yeah, I didn't remember that from this story.
Think of it. No. Okay.
Interesting.
I'm gonna go back to look at
I know
that.
I have to go read that Luke too. Okay, and so then there's an opening prayer for this module. Dear Lord God, we know that many have encountered or will experience depression at some point in their lives, including many of us and those we love. When we suffer from the pain closing in around us, we ask for the comfort of your presence. When those we care for feel depressed, use us to care for and support them, to share your presence, and to show them the way to renewed hope and joy. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay.
Amen.
So we're going to start by talking about how to recognize when a care receiver who is experiencing depression may need to be referred to a mental health professional. So the pre-class reading covered 3 types of or levels of severity of depression: mild, moderate, and severe. You learned that Stephen ministers can care effectively for care receivers who are mildly or moderately depressed, while those who are severely depressed need to receive professional help. In Focus Note 1, it contains the descriptions of the mild, moderate, and severe depressions from the pre-class reading. Would somebody mind reading those, please?
Focus note A, Renee, is that what you mean?
Focus Note 1, types of depression.
Oh, mild depression is the most common type of depression. It can be brought on by sad events or by happy but several stressful ones. Mild depression does not usually interfere with a person's ability to function, but it may make daily life and managing stress feel more difficult. Moderate depression is longer lasting and often more intense than mild depression. It frequently follows a major unhappy event, such as a loved one's death or a divorce. Moderate depression typically does not significantly, but it may make regular activities and a person's and responsibilities more challenging. In some instances, moderate depression may become severe. Severe depression occurs when a person exhibits characteristics of depression for most of the day, nearly every day for at least 2 weeks, and is unable to adequately function in daily life. A person with severe depression generally experiences more characteristics of depression and in greater intensity than someone with mild or moderate depression. Severe depression always requires professional help.
I'm imagining that most of us have either experienced ourselves or know of somebody that has been in one or more of these phases of depression, types of depression. As the description for severe depression indicates, those who are severely depressed need care from a mental health professional. That being said, it is not your responsibility as a Stephen minister to diagnose the severity of a care receiver's depression. Being familiar with the 3 types of depression in Focus Note 1, though, is helpful as a reference. But ultimately, your role is just to recognize the characteristics of depression and the signs that a care receiver may need to be referred to a professional. Take a quick look at Focus Note 2 on page 298, which provides a snapshot of the 3 types of depression and the likelihood that someone at each level would need a referral. So we can see the more intense a care receiver's depression, the more likely it is he or she might need to be referred to a mental health professional. Again, we won't be making a definitive diagnosis as to whether the care receiver is mildly, moderately, or severely depressed, but it's helpful for us to understand these categories so we can have an idea of where the care receiver might be in his or her depression. There are 2 situations that indicate a care receiver is experiencing depression. Two situations that indicate a care receiver experiencing depression needs to be referred to a mental health professional. The first is when a person's characteristics of depression go on for at least 2 weeks and seem to be interfering with the care receiver's ability to function, such as going to work, attending school, eating, attending to personal hygiene, or maintaining his or her relationships with others. These are indicators that a person may be severely depressed. The second situation is when a person displays 1 or more signs that his or her depression is beyond a Stephen minister's ability to care. In Focus Note 3 on page 299, it lists some of those signs. Let's see. So signs that a care receiver's depression may be beyond a Stephen minister's ability to care. Particularly intense characteristics of depression. Care receivers who are experiencing severe depression will often experience the common characteristics of depression very intensely. For example, someone may experience a lowered mood so intense that the person is unable to find happiness or joy in anything, rather than just being unhappy sometimes. Pervasive negative effects. The care receiver's depression may be causing significant problems in almost all areas of his or her life, regardless of any other factors. If a person seems to have lost control of life due to depression, he or she needs professional help. And giving up hope of improvement. A person who has been depressed for a while or who has experienced a particularly difficult event in life may give up on overcoming depression. A person may believe that he or she will always be depressed and seem to lack the motivation to take steps toward healing. Let's see, then distorted perception of reality. A person who is severely depressed may express unreasonable or irrational thoughts or impressions. For instance, the person may assume that everyone is making fun of his or her situation, or a downward spiral of negative thoughts may leave the person unable to see the situation objectively or believe that it will change for the better. And then suicidal thoughts. A person who is depressed may begin to have suicidal thoughts. Module 14 will cover in depth how to recognize the signs that a care receiver may be considering suicide and how to refer him or her to professional help. I apologize in advance. That's another depressing module. But okay, so now we'll take a look at Focus Note 4 on page 300, which contains a flow chart for determining when to make a referral to a mental health professional. I'm doing a check-in, Pat. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. I was just noticing, seemed like you were shaking your head, and I was thinking you were thinking something, so. As long as you're okay.
Oh, no, I'm good. But
Okay. If a care receiver is exhibiting some of the characteristics of depression, keeping in mind that most care receivers will experience some of the more common signs, such as lowered mood or expressions of anger, pay attention to how long those characteristics last and the impact they have on the care receiver's life. Following the flowchart will help you know when you might need to contact pastor or maybe some other kind of professional for that person. And if you're uncertain, you can always consult with the supervision group or again with pastor. A rare situation that calls for immediate action is when a care receiver may be in imminent danger of harm. For example, if you believe he or she is at high risk for attempting suicide, in this kind of situation, contact emergency services first and then get in touch with the pastor or any other person. Also keep in mind that it may be beneficial for a care receiver experiencing moderate depression to receive professional care, particularly if his or her depression has lasted for a substantial period of time. There's no hard and fast rule for when a care receiver who is moderately depressed could benefit from professional care. So if you think a referral might be helpful, talk with the pastor. And they're calling it the community resource contact, but that would be pastor for us. And so to summarize, if your care receiver is mildly depressed, go ahead and continue to provide care as a Stephen minister and remain alert. If your care receiver is moderately depressed and has been for a while, or if you think he or she could benefit from professional care, bring up the possibility of a referral with the pastor. And if you think your care receiver might be displaying any signs of severe depression or that he or she needs care beyond what you can provide, definitely contact the pastor. Or if you, in the event of you think they're going to harm themselves, call emergency services first. Finally, remember that you're not alone in situations like these and you don't have to make decisions on your own. All of us on the Stephen Leader team, the pastor, and the supervision group are there to support you every step of the way. Any questions about any of those? Or anybody ever have any experiences with any of these situations? Okay, I
you
hope
know,
that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like with my mom, like when she couldn't drive anymore, and then when she was bedridden and stuff, yeah, that was kind of sad for her. I
Yeah,
think she experienced some depression because her life took such a change, like really fast.
yeah. And like you were saying, she was kind of calling out to God, why am I still here? Why don't you take me? And with my very first care receiver, I had that experience with her as well. She just had all kind of medical issues, and she was really not doing well. And she wondered often why God hadn't taken her and why, what her purpose still was. They, feel like there's no purpose for me to sit here and just experience this every day. It just doesn't feel like it makes sense. But
Yeah.
I was with her when Pastor was visiting, or when she was in the hospital or something, and he would always tell her, just it's sometimes it's a mystery, but God, if you're still here, God still has a reason for you to be here. So there's still purpose, even if you don't know what it is. Okay, let's see. Okay, now there are some, starting in focus note 5. We'll go over some of these situations. They contain brief descriptions of 10 different situations where care receivers are feeling depressed. So we'll look at them as a group and see what we think. We'll just sort of take turns, if that's okay. Okay, so on the first one, your care receiver says, I've been feeling so sad every day since Al died. It's been a couple of weeks already, and even though I'm keeping up with everything all right, I just don't know when this sadness is going to go away. So what would be, based on that, what, as a caregiver, what would be your thinking in terms of whether they need to be referred for professional help, or what their level of depression is?
Don't refer.
Yeah, don't.
Okay, because that's, yeah, right. That's
And they even are admitting that they're keeping up with everything all right.
right. What their experience is just a natural part of grief. So yeah, you just would keep an eye on them, and over time, see how things go. Okay, cool. Would somebody like to read the second one?
Your care receiver has been feeling more and more down every week. He or she finds it difficult going out, caring visits. He or she frequently just sits quietly with a downcast expression. When you ask your care receiver about his or her feelings, the care receiver just shrugs.
For
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah, I think that might be a time to maybe talk to
Yeah.
Pastor, let him know what's going on. Try to maybe ask some more questions to dig a little deeper, even though they're not really wanting to talk. But yeah, it sounds like it's getting into more severe levels. Okay,
Rereading.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry, my audio is cutting in and out. I don't want to cut you off. What were you saying, Pat?
Oh. Just that it's deteriorating. The
Oh.
situation's deteriorating.
Right. Yeah. Okay, number 3, your care receiver has been exhibiting some emotional characteristics of depression. In addition, the care receiver complains that every day for the past 2 months, he or she has had headaches and felt constantly exhausted. A doctor's appointment last week did not find any physical reason for the headaches.
Refer.
Okay. Yeah, well, if the care receiver has physical complaints with no obvious physical reasons for a long time, yeah, that could be a sign of severe depression. Okay, could somebody else read number 4?
It has been 6 months since your care receiver moved to the city. After the initial thrill of being in a new place, the care receiver has started to feel lonely and down. Recently, the care receiver has talked a lot about friends at home and has mentioned having some trouble sleeping over the past week.
What do you think about that one?
I would say refer because it has been 6 months. Or I moved 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking you might want to not refer right away, but definitely keep an eye on things with them, because it sounds like they're kind of going from being happy about this new experience to kind of becoming lonely and down. So I think you probably go either way. I think you could have a discussion with them about seeing somebody, about maybe going to get some professional help and see how that is received. Okay, number 5, your care receiver who has lost his or her spouse. Oh, go ahead.
Renee.
Yeah.
Quick question. Since the care receiver talked a lot about their friends at home, would it be all right to ask them if they've been in touch with anybody back at home?
Sure.
Just to chat on the phone?
Sure. Yeah. There goes my audio again. Yeah, I think that would be fine. Yeah, and then that could, foster more discussion about maybe doing that if they hadn't thought of doing that. Or maybe they haven't done it because they're feeling down, and you might encourage them, that might make them feel better to do that, get in touch with some of their friends. But I think a lot of times people move away and they figure that, once they move away, they're sort of forgotten in the eyes of the people that they, were in their circle before.
Right.
Okay, let's see. What number are we on? Okay.
5.
5. Okay. Your care receiver who lost his or her spouse months ago says, I've been feeling so bad for so long. Anything would be better than this. I've been thinking a lot recently about Chris. Sometimes I just think about how much I wish I could go to heaven so soon too. I've been collecting sleeping pills. I know I should throw them away, but I've been hanging on to them just in case. Oh, geez. Well, I think we know that one. Give me those sleeping pills right now.
She's been hanging on to, he or she's been hanging on to them just
Right.
in case what?
Yeah,
Just in
exactly.
case what?
Just because it sounds like she's planning to go to heaven soon herself. Yeah, I'd say that's time to immediately talk with the pastor, or to try to ask more questions about these thoughts that she's having of wanting to go to heaven to be with Chris. Okay, could somebody read number 6?
Your care receiver says, I used to think I was a good parent, but I haven't thought that for a while now. I've been so tired since the baby was born. I don't even have the energy to play in the backyard with my other son, even though I love doing that. Life feels so exhausting right now. I know I'll bounce back eventually, but it's really frustrating.
Don't
No,
refer.
no, don't.
Yeah.
refer.
Yeah, this sounds like just
No,
like
but
an
encourage and maybe set up a plan for, how to overcome and giving more attention to her, yeah, and with the baby, and I mean, not with the baby, but with her other son, and then just
yeah, maybe brainstorm with her about ways to get her some help so she can get a little more rest. Sounds like she's just overwhelmed with exhaustion. Okay, number 7, your care receiver says, it feels like this has gone on forever. It's been 6 months since we broke up and I still can't think about it without feeling miserable. Meanwhile, where's God? I used to pray and believe God heard me. Now I think he's deserted me. I guess I'm just going to have to get used to feeling like this forever.
Well, that's the devil.
Could be. He gets,
No.
he uses our thoughts that way. He can,
Right.
if we don't, if your thoughts can kind of get out of control sometimes when you're feeling overwhelmed like this.
I get used to feeling like this probably forever. Oh no. No.
Yeah.
No, don't.
Yeah, I think you would, at the very least,
Present ways to how to
yeah.
overcome, to fight this and stand up against it.
Right. And maybe even think about going to maybe some counseling to help you get past this. It sounds like something person just can't get past. It's having trouble with that. Okay, can somebody read number 8?
Your care receiver has been feeling upset and depressed about losing his or her job a week and a half ago. The care receiver hasn't gone grocery shopping since then, didn't show up for the church committee meeting he or she chairs, and has told you he or she isn't going to apply for any jobs.
Hmm.
I don't think, I wouldn't refer because I think it's too soon. It hasn't been enough time. Like it's, you go through that,
Mhm.
you have to give him
Mhm.
maybe some encouragement to get him over that hump.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess my concern would be if they haven't been grocery shopping, are they eating and that sort of thing? But yeah, I think more questions.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Teresa, did I cut you off?
Oh, no, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay, sorry, I thought I heard somebody saying something. Yeah, yeah, that one I think could kind of go either way. Could just wait a little while longer, maybe bring up the topic of these things that they're neglecting in their, in their own care, for their own care, and see where that goes.
I mean, there are definitely signs that their normal routine has been disrupted by the
Mhm.
depression,
Mhm.
but
Which is normal in depression, but right, it hadn't gone on that long yet, so. Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of a tough thing when you are only seeing or speaking with the person like once a week to really know how, how long it's been going on and to what level. So yeah, these are kind of all kind of judgment calls. Number 9, while meeting, your care receiver whispers to you, I think my family has been meeting without me and talking about what to do with me. I'm sure they're thinking about having me put away in a mental institution or kicking me out of the house and making me live on the streets. Don't laugh, Renee. I would definitely have
Oh,
to
boy.
have more conversation about that. Why are they thinking this? And, but that sounds like they need some referral to somebody. If they're sincere in that. Okay, and can someone read number 10?
I will. Your
Thank you.
care receiver says, I've been feeling sad and wanting to cry ever since Kyle left for college. I call him once a week and feel better for a while, but whenever I walk past his room, I really miss him. I'm able to forget about these feelings when I'm at work or when I'm working in the yard, but there always seems to be a time every day when I remember Kyle and start feeling sad again.
Mm,
I say don't refer.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like normal adjusting to
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's see. The next section is 12 guidelines for caring for people with mild or moderate depression. So on page 304, it says we've looked at what to do when a care receiver's depression goes beyond the care a Stephen minister can offer. Now we'll talk about what to do in situations where Stephen ministers are equipped to provide care when a care receiver is experiencing mild or moderate depression. Many of the skills we've already learned about: feelings, listening, distinctively Christian care, assertiveness, and caring for grieving people will be helpful in caring for those who are depressed. Okay, so this section will look at 12 additional guidelines. The first one is be accepting. First, keep in mind the importance of being accepting. A care receiver who is depressed may experience rejection from others. People may avoid your care receiver because they find him or her difficult to talk with or be around. Others may invalidate the care receiver's feelings or experience by saying things like, you really don't have anything to be depressed about, or you should be over it by now, or you just need to stop being so negative about everything. Avoidance and invalidation from others are often perceived as rejection, which may push a care receiver deeper into depression. You can bring light into a dark place by accepting your care receiver and letting him or her know it's okay to feel pain and share difficult feelings. For someone who is depressed, such acceptance can be a very real comfort. Focus Note 6 includes a couple of examples of how you might express your acceptance to a care receiver. Okay. Somebody read Focus Note 6.
I know you've been struggling with feeling down. I just want to say that when people go through what you've been through, feeling down is natural. I'll be with you while you work through this. You said earlier that you felt bad for being depressed and not acting like yourself. I just want you to know that no matter what you're going through or how you're feeling, I'll walk with you through it.
Okay, thank you. So by expressing acceptance and support, you help create a safe place for the care receiver to let out his or her feelings. The number two, closely related to acceptance, is taking your care receiver and his or her feelings of depression seriously. Depending on the situation, it may seem the care receiver is depressed over something that people would ordinarily consider insignificant. Even so, the pain the care receiver is experiencing is very real and shouldn't be dismissed. Resist any temptation to try to cheer up your care receiver or use humor to help him or her out of depression. Such efforts won't help, and the care receiver may perceive them as trivializing his or her feelings. Rather than feeling better, the care receiver will probably only feel worse. Instead, work to see the situation from your care receiver's point of view by asking questions to learn how he or she feels about things. Empathize with his or her feelings and avoid imposing your own perspective on the care receiver's experience. Doing this communicates that you are taking your care receiver's situation seriously, which will help him or her feel safe to continue sharing. Can anyone think of situations where, well, like in one of those examples we just read, with the mother was feeling so sad that her son had gone off to school and he wasn't there anymore. I mean, for one person, that might be like, woohoo, the kids are out of the house, finally, so they don't really understand how that, how you could feel like that. Or maybe somebody doesn't have the greatest relationship with their kids or whatever. So, I mean, I can understand there are times like that when somebody else's feelings do feel, from your point of view, like they are sort of not menial, but yeah, it's just hard to understand them. Has anyone have that experience?
Mhm.
Okay, so then number three, be patient. Caring for people who are depressed can require an additional measure of patience. That's because care receivers with depression may talk or respond more slowly than usual. They may repeat themselves frequently or constantly focus on the negative. Allow the conversation to proceed at the care receiver's speed. Listen attentively and respond with care to his or her thoughts, even if you've heard them before. Showing impatience or frustration may cause the care receiver to blame herself for that negative reaction, and then the care receiver may be less willing to share or might retreat further into depression. You'll also need to be patient with the care receiver's pace for handling his or her depression. Resist the temptation to argue against a care receiver's negative thinking or give advice about changes the care receiver could make to start feeling better. That kind of focus on results won't help the care receiver. Instead, remain patiently focused on the process, allowing God and the person to work through the problems in their own time. Number four, initiate conversation as needed. So on page 305, people who are depressed may have a wide variety of feelings about talking with others. Some may not initiate conversation, even if they feel better when talking. Others may talk in spurts and appreciate extra time to collect their thoughts. Still others may be extremely uncomfortable with silence and want to talk constantly. When caring for someone who is feeling depressed, you'll need to determine the best way to engage the person in conversation. Use the active listening skills we learned in Module 3. Offer affirmation when your care receiver shares, prompt him or her with reflective statements, and ask follow-up questions to invite additional sharing. Pay attention to how the care receiver responds and determine as best you can how he or she feels about conversation. In many instances, your active listening will help the care receiver become more comfortable with talking. Be aware, however, that care receivers who are depressed may blame themselves for being too talkative. If your care receiver has been sharing a lot and then suddenly starts to hold back or apologize for talking so much, you may need to give permission to continue sharing. that might involve saying something like the words in focus note 7. And I'll read that. Please feel free to talk. I'm here to listen. In other situations, you may find that the care receiver doesn't seem to be comfortable talking, possibly only responding with short answers or communicating discomfort through body language. If this happens, it's not a reflection on your caregiving. People who are depressed sometimes just don't feel like talking. They may also blame themselves for allowing silences to occur. You can help decrease their anxiety over silences by saying something like the words in focus note 8. Say something like, just take your time, or it's all right. It's all right to just be silent if you need to. Even so, you may at times want to gently break a period of silence with the care receiver who is depressed. Focus note 9 suggests some statements you might use to break silences. So those are, you've been quiet for a while. I'm wondering what you're thinking. Or you're not saying much, which is perfectly okay, but I imagine there's a lot going on inside. Don't rush to speak every time there's a lull in the conversation, but breaking silence in a gentle, caring way can help keep the conversation moving and encourage the care receiver to verbalize his or her thoughts and feelings. Number 5, encourage expression of feelings. Exploring feelings is important with any care receiver, and it's particularly so with those who are feeling depressed. Care receivers dealing with depression may have an especially difficult time expressing their emotions. So providing a safe place for them to articulate their feelings is a key way to care for them. One way you can encourage care receivers who are feeling depressed to share their feelings is by affirming them when they make any kind of feeling statements. For instance, if your care receiver has been struggling to express something and then manages to put his or her feelings into words, you could give an encouraging response, such as in focus note 10, thanks, I'd been wondering what you were feeling about that. Some people who are depressed may express their feelings by crying. Others may feel uncomfortable doing so, even if they have the urge to cry. Similarly, a care receiver who is depressed may also be experiencing feelings of anger, which can be a difficult emotion for people to express. Focus note 11 on page 306 shows some statements you might use to invite a care receiver to cry or express her feelings of anger. Did somebody read the focus note 11?
If you feel like crying, go right ahead. It's all right to cry. It's perfectly okay to cry, to let out what you're feeling. It seems like you're angry about blank. I wonder if you can tell me more about that. If you're feeling angry, you can let it out. I'm willing to listen. If you have some anger to let out, I can handle it.
I just feel the urge to tell you, Teresa, that if I were in that situation and you were my care receiver, I'd want to start talking. You just have this empathy in your voice, and it's just like it's sort of
Oh, I
soothing.
didn't know that.
You do. Of course, you'll want to help care receivers share any feelings they may be having, but tears and anger are often especially difficult to let out. So it's good to be prepared to help people express them. Anytime a care receiver who is depressed expresses his or her feelings, ask follow-up questions to encourage him or her to continue talking about these emotions. Focus note 12 shows some ways to encourage a care receiver to share more about these feelings. So those are, let's see, there must have been some pretty strong emotions behind those tears. Could you tell me more about it? Or, it's really good that you were able to recognize and express those feelings. I'm wondering what else you're feeling right now. Or, those are some strong feelings you've shared. Tell me more about them. As you work through your care receiver's emotions with her, continue to validate those feelings and communicate acceptance about anything the care receiver shares with you. And stop me at any time if anyone has anything about any of these steps that they want to say more about. So number 6, help your care receiver work through negative thoughts. People who are feeling depressed have a tendency to get caught up in negative thinking, which can cause their depression to worsen. Responding to this negative cycle requires patience, gentleness, and care. The key to responding to a care receiver's negative thinking is to use a lot of reflective listening, validation of the care receiver's feelings, and follow-up questions. Resist the urge to jump in and challenge the care receiver's thoughts, as doing so won't help. Instead, use your active listening skills and know that simply having someone to talk with may help a care receiver to begin dealing with his or her negative thoughts. In some cases, the care receiver may get stuck in his or her negativity and begin to repeat the same thoughts. If so, continue to listen to the care receiver for as long as he or she needs to talk. Then, after the care receiver's sharing comes to an end, however long it takes, it's appropriate to offer some gentle encouragement. Focus note 3 on page 306 and 307 shows an example of a care receiver's expressing negative thoughts and a Stephen minister responding after some good listening. So could somebody be the care receiver and somebody be the Stephen minister? And focus note 13.
Okay, I'll be care receiver.
Okay.
I hate feeling like this. I just want to feel normal again, but nothing seems to help. If I wasn't such a failure, I wouldn't be so depressed.
Shake off those feelings.
It is. I really just want to be over this already. I feel like I should be over it, but I'm not. And it's my fault. I wish I could snap out of this.
Pat, there's another page.
Oh, sorry.
She's just offering you some silence.
Where
Oh, that's right.
I'm thinking. I'd like to know more about what you mean when you say it's your fault. I'm going to continue to listen and talk to the care receiver. Thanks for sharing with me. I know you've been feeling pretty down on yourself lately, but I want to say that I don't see you as a failure at all. I've got a lot of confidence in you, and I am going to be here for you through all this.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
I'll be right there.
Thank you.
It's possible that the negative thinking of a care receiver who is depressed may turn into a downward spiral. In a spiral, a care receiver begins to think more and more negative thoughts, falling deeper into depression and becoming unable to distinguish negativity from reality. For example, the person may begin to call herself names or express beliefs that she is inherently a bad person. Downward spirals are almost always a sign that a care receiver needs professional help.
Can I ask a question, Renee?
Sure.
So, like, it's supposed to be a weekly thing, but are there situations and stuff where you might want to follow up, like every couple of days, or just make contact?
Sure.
check.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what they have designed this program to be like a once a week thing, but there's going to be situations where we have to use our best judgment. Yeah. And if you feel like they're especially going through a real rough patch, yeah, I don't think that's a problem. I do that with my care receiver now. Like it's with grief, it's up and down. It's a roller coaster. It kind of comes and goes. And yeah, she'll have some days that are really, really rough. And so I'll call her we'll talk on the phone a couple of days in a row till she seems like she's doing better, and then we'll make our next appointment for the following week or whatever. But yeah, you just play it by ear. Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's good if you're willing to do that and you have the time to do it. So I think that would be good. Okay, number 7, follow the care receiver's lead in using the word depression. Another way to care for those with mild or moderate depression is to be sensitive about labeling your care receiver's experience as depression when talking with them. Although we've used the term depression throughout the module, it's typically best not to use the word with a care receiver unless she brings it up. For example, if a care receiver says something like, "I've been so depressed recently," it's okay to use the word depression in your conversation. Otherwise, you're better off avoiding the word so as not to upset a care receiver or give them what may sound like a diagnosis. One exception is when you believe your care receiver may be severely depressed. Because of the seriousness of the situation, go ahead and use the word depression so you can clearly communicate your care and concern. The next session, let's see, is next one, number 8, discourage self-defeating behavior. I think we're on page 307, the outline. A care receiver who's feeling depressed may talk about quitting a job, dropping out of school, ending an important relationship, selling a long-time home, or making another major life decision that might adversely affect his or her future. Such choices may seem like a good idea to a care receiver who is feeling depressed, but he or she may regret those actions after recovering. Encourage your care receiver to avoid making significant or potentially harmful decisions while feeling depressed. Although Stephen ministers typically do not give advice, it's often appropriate in situations like this to offer an opinion, make a suggestion, or even make an agreement with the care receiver to delay making a major decision until he or she is feeling better. In these instances, intervening to some extent is necessary to prevent harm to the care receiver. Focus note 14 contains an example of how you might conduct a conversation like this. Okay, I need 2 more volunteers, a care receiver and a Stephen minister.
I can be the care receiver.
Okay,
I'll be
thank you.
Stephen minister.
Thanks.
I've decided to quit my job.
Wow, that's a big change to make. Tell me about how you came to that decision. I listened to you. Okay.
Right. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So I just don't feel like working. I just don't feel like working in this field anymore.
I
That's
see.
why I'm tired.
You're really feeling unfulfilled by your job right now. I'm wondering though, if you really need to quit immediately. It might be a good idea to wait a little. You can always quit your job, but if you quit it now and want to go back later, you might not be able to.
Well, I suppose it wouldn't hurt to wait a while.
You can take that time to think through your situation before doing anything.
Does anybody have any experience that they can relate or relay where they've been kind of about to make a decision that they probably shouldn't have just because of, circumstances of how you're feeling? They say when you're really sad not to make a decision, or if any big major life thing has just happened. What, Pat? What are you laughing at?
Thinking, Pastor told me don't make any major decisions within
Uh-huh.
3 months of mom passing. And I think the week after mom passed, anyway, I brought home a new puppy. Should have thought about it. Should have thought about it.
Well, did it make you feel better at the time?
It did at the time.
It probably definitely distracted you for a while too.
It did, but I forgot all about the stuff that goes along with being a puppy, and that became aggravation.
Right. And I think those are the very things we don't think about when we're in a depressed state. We just want something to change this feeling for us, and
Yeah.
so we kind of jump into decisions sometimes. Okay, so
The last week with focus note 14, my son actually did that. He quit his job.
Oh no.
Without even having another one lined up. And I always told him, don't ever quit a job until you have something lined up to take its place. I go, you can always give him a 2 weeks notice and you're out the door, but don't quit. He learned the hard way. Don't quit a job.
Oh. Well, now did he make that decision?
To find another one.
Oh, so when he did that, do you think it was was it as a result of him being kind of in a funk about something, or?
Yeah, he was just in a funk with.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times we just want the feelings about something to stop. We're not really thinking about the consequences of a action we're about to take. So. As shown in this example, the first step is to do a lot of listening. Make sure that the care receiver feels heard. In fact, as the care receiver talks through the reasons for making the decision, he or she may come to the conclusion on his or her own that it's not a good time to make that decision. If not, it's good to warn against a potentially harmful course of action and to suggest alternatives. The care receiver, however, ultimately has the right to make decisions for herself, even if it might have negative effects. The exception to this is when there is a possibility of physical harm to the care receiver or to others. As the confidentiality module and upcoming sessions on suicide will make clear, if such a situation arises, you'll want to consult right away with pastor. Yeah. And if necessary, call emergency services. Let's see. Yeah, I think in those situations, it's probably a good idea to try to help them talk through with them. Like, okay, let's say you make that decision. What do you think the consequences will be? How will that play out? Or, because I think they probably really haven't thought it through. Okay, now on page 308. Sometimes people who are depressed find themselves immobilized by indecision, uncertainty, a lack of motivation, or other characteristics of depression. They may find it difficult to think through next steps to take actions that they know would help them feel better. This inability to act can worsen someone's depression, as the person feels bad about not making any progress or getting anything done. When a care receiver who is feeling depressed struggles in this way, one helpful thing you can do is to invite the care receiver to think through some small, constructive steps he or she can take. These might be enjoyable activities to try, productive tasks to do, or possible changes to make. Avoid giving advice or telling your care receiver what to do, but if he or she is open to a change, provide an opportunity for them to think through the possibilities. By taking some small steps, the care receiver can build momentum and gain the motivation to move on to other tasks while regaining hope and a feeling of control. How you help a care receiver in this way will depend on the care receiver's specific situation. Focus note 15 contains an example of how a Stephen minister might help a care receiver talk about positive steps. Okay, I'll be the care receiver this time. Somebody be the Stephen minister?
I will.
Okay. I just feel so bad about everything right now. It's not just the breakup either. I'm not keeping up with some of the stuff around my apartment. And lately, I haven't felt like going out with my friends. I'm just sick of this. I don't know where to start.
It sounds like you want to make some changes, but you're having a hard time getting yourself to take action.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about some of the chores or errands you feel you're not keeping up with.
I don't know. It's been a while since I've cleaned my apartment, and I feel like I'm just living off microwave food for the last few days.
Maybe you can just start with something small. What's one errand you think you could handle right now?
I guess I could maybe go to the store to get some groceries. Maybe I feel better if I actually had something good to eat.
That sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, I'll give that a shot later today. As you talk with your care receiver about possible steps, remember to follow her lead. Don't pressure your care receiver into doing something she doesn't feel up to. Instead, ask questions to get the care receiver thinking about tasks she wants to complete, and then, as needed, make a gentle suggestion to give the care receiver a little motivation. If she still doesn't want to take that action, that's okay. Allow her to go at her own pace. Okay, then number 10 is help identify the source of the depression. This is page 309. Another way to help a care receiver is to work with him or her to identify what changes or events in life led to this feeling of depression. Even if it seems obvious why a care receiver is feeling depressed, it can be helpful to encourage them to talk about the situation to clearly identify the root of those feelings. By making the cause more concrete in the care receiver's mind, she can see her feelings of depression as something that are possible to deal with. And focus note 16 contains a sample conversation that leads to the identification of a problem. Okay, I'll just be both people this time. Care receiver, I'm so depressed. Stephen minister, well, what led to you feeling so depressed? I don't know. That's okay. When did you start feeling depressed? I guess sometime last week. Can you remember anything in particular that happened last week that might have brought this on? Nothing really. Just now that I think about it, I guess I started feeling bad after meeting a friend for lunch on Wednesday. Tell me more about that. Well, we spent some time catching up and we talked for a while about my friend's new job. And I remember I couldn't stop thinking about how I haven't been able to find work since I was laid off. So of course, identifying the cause or causes of depression often takes longer than in the sample conversation. And in some cases, a care receiver might not be able to come up with a specific cause. But this example gives an idea of how you might help the care receiver think through the reasons she is feeling depressed. When a care receiver is able to recognize the cause of her feelings, it can be a step toward finding hope. By identifying a cause, the care receiver can come to see the sequence of events that led to the feelings of depression. Being able to trace where the depressed feelings are coming from can allow the care receiver to feel more in control of the situation, as well as give hope for resolving those feelings. 11 is recognize and affirm small improvements. You can also nurture hope in your care receiver by recognizing and affirming small improvements. For example, you may note that your care receiver seems to have worked through some anger or seems to have more energy than the last time you met. Helping your care receiver become more aware of those improvements can be a powerful way to help him or her see that change is possible. And then number 12, share Christian resources when appropriate. Finally, at times you might support your care receiver by sharing Christian resources and assurances, as we learned in the Christian Caregiving, A Way of Life, and Module 4, the Distinctly Christian Caring. Some care receivers may genuinely appreciate hearing a prayer or a scripture verse, while others may experience difficult feelings or increased feelings of depression when faith or spiritual issues are brought up, particularly if spiritual struggles are connected to their depression. Listen carefully and use these resources only when a care receiver is likely to be receptive to them. One key resource is to consider is prayer. Prayer can be a wonderful gift for those who are feeling depressed, reminding them that God is present and listening. It also allows care receivers to share their burdens with God and with their Stephen minister instead of carrying them alone. As Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." You might offer to pray aloud with your care receiver if she is willing. If it seems like the right time to do so, encourage your care receiver to bring her own concerns to God in prayer. Another tool you can make a difference with is forgiveness. As mentioned in the pre-class reading, guilt over specific actions, failing to meet expectations, or other reasons can be contributing factors to some people's depression. When you allow care receivers to talk about those feelings, and after doing a lot of listening, share some words of forgiveness as appropriate. It can be a powerful way to allow them to work through one of the possible root causes of their depression. Scripture is an important resource as well, with many passages that a person who is feeling depressed may appreciate. However, the Bible must be used sensitively, and doing a lot of listening, if it seems appropriate, share a scripture passage or a Bible story that meets the care receiver's needs. When used at the right time and in the right way, such assurance can be a powerful way to give comfort and instill hope. And finally, Christian community is another caring resource for people who are depressed. If your care receiver is struggling but wants to interact with people, engaging fellow Christians can be a beneficial way to connect to others and experience community. People have different needs and comfort levels, so ask your care receiver what he or she would prefer. Some people want to be part of a larger crowd at Sunday morning worship, while others may feel more comfortable in a small group setting. If your care receiver seems open to relating with other Christians, help him or her figure out what type or size of gathering she would most appreciate. Okay. Let's see. Time is getting late. Okay, there's we've got some skill practices here. Let's see. Okay, for focus note 17, the Stephen minister's situation is you've been meeting with your care receiver for about 1.5 years since her spouse died. She has been feeling happier recently and talking hopefully about the future. Suddenly, however, she seems very depressed. How would we approach that? Any ideas?
I think just to come out and ask, like what's been going on recently that,
Mhm.
I mean, some probing questions to kind of give you an idea.
Right, maybe talk about what you've experienced as far as noticing how they seem to be feeling lately. Mhm. Okay. All right.
And I would maybe just what Pat said, recognize, we'll just say, I've noticed you've, it, I don't even know how to say it, but to I guess affirm with them, or reassure them that sometimes grief is a real roller coaster. And so while you might be feeling good for a while, and while she might have been feeling like things were hopeful, sometimes out of the blue, suddenly you're starting to feel depressed again. So that it just take, listen to her, ask her what might be going on, and also reassure her that, this is part of the grief journey, is
Mhm.
that you'll have times where you will fall back and feel like, I thought I've been gaining, making such headway, and now I just feel like I'm, back to where I was.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I think it's important too, as the caregivers, to not let yourself feel like there's, oh gosh, we're losing ground here. They were getting well and now they're, don't look at it like that. But remember that same advice for yourself, that it's going to be a roller coaster for them. They're going to be going up and down. But yeah, to remind them of those things for sure. Okay, let's see. Focus note 18, the situation. Your spouse passed away about 18 months ago, and you start meeting with your Stephen minister shortly afterward. Your close friend, who happens to live next door, has been an important support after your spouse's death and helped you feel less alone. You just found out that this friend is moving to another part of the country, and you feel depressed over the news. You thought that you were getting over your sadness at your spouse's death, but now the coming loss of your friend has set you back. You find it hard to talk about the difficult feelings resulting from this loss because you're sure you'll break down if you try. Okay, so never mind the rest of it. How do you think we would respond in that situation? They're telling us about this, and it's obvious they're trying not to cry, trying to kind of hold back these deep feelings.
Well, you have to validate their feelings that they're going through that. You can certainly be empathetic but yeah, there's going to be events. I mean, it still happens. I'm sure, Beth, you too. There are things that happen that just they're triggers all the time.
Right, yeah. And like earlier in this module, we were talking about, just letting them know it's okay to cry. There's nothing, let it out. Let it. I'm just here to be with you, so don't feel bad about that. It's a normal part of feeling down and depressed.
You can also ask the care receiver, well, with this friend of theirs moving away, would a friend mind if maybe she calls them every once in a while and keep in touch?
Right. Maybe bring up some points that they hadn't really thought about. They're just thinking about she's going to be gone and I won't have her anymore. And it's almost like they're losing another person. But yeah, the upside is that they can still be in touch with this person if they want to. And so they're helping to see the good parts of it.
And
Okay.
it's not as final a loss as death. So
Right.
you can
Right.
about that, like, oh yeah, circumstances are going to change, but maybe you can go visit, or
Yeah. Or maybe even relate what you just said to, to say, why do you think your feelings so like this is affecting you so much? Do you think it might have something to do with the fact that you're still grieving your husband, or you're still grieving your, and you're just feeling like this is another major loss, and you just get them maybe talking about those feelings. Okay, let's see here. We're gonna skip over some of these. Okay, let's try focus note 22. I'm not, let's see, I don't have my manual. I don't know what page that's on.
314.
Okay, thank you. So your care receiver has been the primary caregiver for her elderly mother for the past 3 years. You began your caring relationship about 6 months ago during a particularly stressful period when the care receiver's mother seemed about to pass away. She recovered, but has gradually declined in health since then. Although your care receiver has generally coped well with the situation, lately she has been down and hasn't seemed like herself. What kinds of things might we try to talk with her about?
That is such an emotional roller coaster right there. I mean,
Mhm.
that sounds like my mom's scenario.
Oh, really? Was there a
I
point
mean,
where she seemed like she
was-
rallied?
yeah,
Mhm.
and yeah, she rallied so many times. That's why, I mean,
Okay.
so that's really emotionally draining because you're trying to prepare yourself because, like, oh, we're here, and then we're not,
Oh,
and you're
right,
glad
right,
that, but
right. Yeah. Yeah. So knowing that, that might be something you might encourage her to talk more about. Like you might even say, I've kind of experienced something similar to what I think you're going through. Like I'm imagining that you're probably feeling just overwhelmed, like you're on a roller coaster. Yeah. See if she can maybe, talk more about it based on the fact that, now she knows you've experienced that too. And I think a lot of times you go through something like that and you figure nobody really understands what's happening because, most people aren't dealing with that at the time you are. So, what might have made you feel better, Pat, if you had a care receiver during that time?
I did have hospice that came in
Mm.
twice a week, I think, to bathe mom and stuff. So that was always good. It gave me a break from having to do that physical part of it.
Mhm.
Plus, I didn't know it initially, but they had something called respite care, like, and it's covered under the insurance. Like, they will take the person out of the home, take them up to the hospice house, just give the caregiver a break.
Oh, okay.
I actually took advantage of that 3 times because sometimes you just need to like recharge.
Well, that's a
It
good
it was
resource to know about. Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's just so draining
Mhm.
on several levels, and you also feel kind of hopeless. I mean, you pray. Mom and I prayed every night, and there were
Oh.
certain things we were doing that were positive things, but
Mhm.
it just was like you said, like the roller coaster ride, and
Right.
over
Yeah.
time, it just wears you down. Even though you regroup, you're not quite to 100%, and then you start the
Yeah.
process over. And so
Yeah. I imagine there must be a part of you that's kind of thinking, how long is this going to go on? Like up and down, up and down. Yeah.
it,
It's got to be.
I mean, I remember thinking like this is going to go on forever. Like we
Right.
started thinking
Yeah.
it's just going to live till 100. Not that it would have
Yeah.
been a bit, but like I said, her quality of life was not the same, and it just seemed
Right.
it was
Yeah.
very draining for everybody.
I can imagine
But a
that.
lot of blessings too.
What?
I said, but there were a lot of blessings too.
Oh, amen. Amen. Yeah. Okay, let's see. All right, I guess we don't need to go over all of them. So let's move on to the caregiver's compass on page 315. Talking about the 4 points at the center of the caregiver's compass. What are some words or sentences that summarize what we learned about each point in this lesson? So, and how about from the standpoint of compassion, being compassionate?
Listening.
I would say patience, patience, and just listening.
I think the validation is important, like no
Mhm.
matter what their feelings are, that you validate their feelings.
Absolutely, that's a great one. Mhm. How about full of faith?
Nobody's talking.
That one kind of always makes me think just about like prayer and scripture, praying with them and
That-
for them. Yeah. How about trustworthy?
I think by being understanding and non-judgmental, just
Mhm.
hearing and
Mhm. Right, keeping confidences and showing up, being reliable. Mhm. Okay, and how about skilled?
offering some alternatives to their situation or just some other scenarios to make them
Mhm.
think.
Mhm. And just exercising all the skills that you learned so far throughout these classes too. I'm sorry, Teresa.
Knowing resources.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's a good one. I'm gonna write that respite one down. Is that what you called it, Pat? Respite?
Yeah, they called it respite care.
Okay, I didn't. Yeah, that's really sounds like a really valuable one. Okay. Anybody have any other thoughts, or questions, or? Okay, there's a closing prayer in the book here then, and I'll read that. Lord Jesus, you know the pain of loss and abandonment. You have experienced the sadness, loneliness, anger, hopelessness, and fear that we all encounter at times. Be near to our care receivers when they feel depressed. Be present with us and use us to patiently care for them as they suffer. Be a source of hope in us and through us. Help us to know and to show that while weeping may persist in the night, your healing love will endure. Amen. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. Does anybody have any special prayer requests? Anything new or anything to report about anything you've mentioned before? Well, I have a praise, and I want to thank all of you for your prayers for me because I'm doing a lot better. It's been a tough week and a half or so. So
Was that a scheduled surgery for you?
what's that?
Was that a scheduled surgery for you?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a thumb, and the difficulty in it it's healing up good. It's my little wrist. I don't know if you can see it. It's healing
Oh,
up.
you had carpal.
No, it's a thumb joint replacement. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But the surgery itself is going well. The problem was that there was with the nerve block that they did that seemed to damage one of the nerves. So I've been having a lot of pain shooting down my arm as a result of that. So that's been
No,
what's more of the
that's
problem.
great.
Yeah. I think that's easing up some. So but I appreciate everyone's prayers and thoughts for me. So thank you.
Mhm.
Well, this is Thursday, and so we'll see each other again. We'll see you again on Saturday. What do we say? Not 11 o'clock, right? 11 to 1. If that works for everyone.
Mhm.
Okay, and I'll follow up with an email tonight to tell you what the reading is in your manual. I'm sure you can figure it out, but just to reinforce what that is for everyone. And then when we sign off tonight, I'll go try to find this recording. It's somewhere out in the Ethernet. And I'll send a copy to everybody. Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming, and I will see you then on Saturday if I don't see you sooner.
Tomorrow night.
Okay.
Tomorrow
Oh,
night.
tomorrow night. I will see some. Yeah,
The right Zoom.
yeah, yeah. Get rid of
Okay.
the Zoom, but make sure you get rid of the right Zoom. So,
Mhm.
all right, everyone, have a good night.
Renee.
You
Bye-bye.
too.
Buddy.
Bye.